go into 3A now. Before we kick off, we're going to say what we do in a lot of our previews. You know your team, your area better than us, so if we missed something, feel free to drop that in the comment section down below. Give us your thoughts, anything you thought, hey, you guys missed this or you got this wrong, please let us know because there are a lot of schools to cover. Thank goodness for things like Indiana Football Digest, John Harrell, and Max Preps. That's pretty much where I lived this past weekend, getting all the lowdown on all the teams. So biggest storyline from 3A, at least for me, is can Lawrenceburg's defense shine like they did in 2022? Lawrenceburg had the best defense in the state in terms of points per game last season, allowing just 6 points per contest. They had 6 straight shutouts from September 9th to October 14th. 7 total on the season. They allowed 7 or fewer points in 11 of 15 games. That defense led them to their first state championship appearance since 2016. Their top 2 tacklers, Jake Pierce and Nico Ferreira, they're both gone. They had 100 tackles apiece last season. Pierce was also tied for the team lead in takeaways with 4 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. So with some key talent missing from last year's squad, will the defense remain one of the best, or will they need help? Will they remain one of the best units and help keep the Tigers in the conversation, or will Lawrenceburg take a step back this season? So I think there is a spotlight on the Lawrenceburg Tigers to see if they can produce what they did a year ago.
Yeah, again, it is one of those things where Lawrenceburg has built a tradition of having really good defenses, and each senior class doesn't want to be that first one that's going to underperform. They want to keep that tradition alive. It will be interesting because it is tough to replace 100 plus tacklers. That's never an easy thing to do, but I mean, like I said, Lawrenceburg has built that tradition of solid defenses, and there's no reason to think that the guys that were behind them didn't take what they learned from them and are able to put that into play this year to keep them as one of the best defenses in the entire state.
Looking at toughest sectional, I'm honing in on sectional 28, more or less because you've got the defending 3A champs, a storied program in Bishop Chatard. They're going to be good yet again. They're good year in, year out. They are the preseason number 1 in the class. For 3A. Garin Catholic is also preseason number 6. They finished ranked in the final AP poll last year. Tom Dilley has a solid team, yet again coming back, and of course they played Chatard really well in the regular season last year. I believe they still got beat in the sectional pretty soundly by Chatard, but in the regular season they played them pretty well. So I think that sectional is going to be fun to watch, sectional 28.
Yeah, I mean, there's that sectional. Wow, I completely forgot Tom Dilley was at Garin Catholic. Tom Dilley was the head coach at Lawrence North when I was at LN. But if you're going to look at a coach that's got that kind of tradition, that's got tradition of winning in that class level, it is Tom Dilley. I mean, look what he did when he was at Chatard for the longest time. But yeah, Garin Catholic is going to be much improved. I mean, they were good last year. Chatard, it's Chatard. They're one of the most success programs in this history in the state of Indiana. That I think that one is ultimately going to be a battle, and that's going to be a fun battle to watch because I feel like if whoever comes out of that one, I would give the inside track to get to Lucas Oil Stadium. But yeah, I mean, history versus kind of a newer up and coming. Garen's got solid play at quarterback. It's going to be entertaining for sure.
Player to watch for Class 3A. I'm going back to Lawrenceburg. Kind of the same reasoning I had for picking the Valparaiso defender, only kind of going the different direction with it this time. I'm going with Lawrenceburg senior running back Tegan Bennett. He was the 3A rushing leader amongst players that you'll see back this season. He had 1,532 yards, 18 touchdowns a year ago, 9 games of 100-plus yards, 4 games of 150-plus yards, 207 yards versus Batesville during the 3A tournament. He had 6 multi-touchdown games, 3 games with 3 or more touchdowns, and a 4-touchdown game versus Rushville in September. He was all-conference and all-state last year. And the Tigers are the number 2 team in 3A heading into the season, and, as far as the preseason goes, according to IFD. And if they're going to make another deep run, they need Tegan Bennett to have another strong year, especially if the defense is not as on point. So, if the defense isn't doing what they did last year, they're going to have to rely on that offense. I mean, I know a lot of those shutouts were also blowouts where they won 28, 30 to nothing, whatever. But still, they're going to need that offense to shine just that much brighter if the defense isn't on point like it was last year. So I think Tegan Bennett's going to be fun to watch this year.
My player to watch comes from a school I've just kind of talked about a little bit, but it is senior quarterback Ryan Zimmerman from Guerin Catholic. He's had a pretty solid career up to this point. Last year, he only played in 3.5 games and ended the season with a collarbone injury that he ended up having to have surgery on. But look, in his 3.5 games he played in last year, he completed 66% of his passes for 1,035 yards and 9 touchdowns compared to 4 interceptions. So he was on pace to have a heck of a season. As a sophomore, he passed for over 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns and rushed for another 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, this kid has some pretty big talent, and I think if he's still making that progression like we saw him making last year from his sophomore, he was on track to do last year from his sophomore year, he can lead Guerin Catholic a long way in the postseason.
Yeah, talked about the talent that Coach Dilly has coming back. He's definitely one of those players that can make a difference for that squad this year. As far as the dark horse goes, and our champion for 3A goes, dark horse for me, I'm going to go with Monrovia, because why not the Fighting Mark Janeses? Why not the Fighting Bulldogs of Monrovia? They were 6-8 a year ago, but they did rally from a 7-game losing streak to win their sectional and regional. That was for the first time since 2016. They were the preseason number 10 for 3A according to IFD. They returned their leading rusher, Brayton Belcher. He ran for almost 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. They also get back Josie Hand, who had 545 yards and 8 touchdowns a year ago. Joey Smith led the team in tackles as a freshman with 110. He's back. They have Brody Clampett, who's tied amongst returnees with 2.5 sacks. He was a freshman last season as well. High-quality names on this team. You've got a Clampett. You've got Josie Hand. You've got Brayton Belcher, which just makes me think of Bob's Burgers, the Belcher family there. So you got a lot of great names on that squad as well. So that's another great reason to pick them. And they've got some key offensive talent. They've got some young talent as well on the defensive side that's improving. And I think Monrovia can make a deep run this year. I think they can really open some eyes. The champion that I'm picking, though, I am going with Gibson Southern. I think they're going to have a really strong year. They're IFD's preseason number 3. They were 10-1 last season. They finished number 2 in both the AP and coaches poll. They get quarterback Tanner Boyd back. He had nearly 1,500 yards. He had 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last season. They also return his top target, Sean DeLong, who was a force on both sides of the ball really last year for the Titans. On the defensive side, they get Brody Kem back. He was an all-state Kime, I think it is. I think I missed a letter in there. Brody Kime, he's back, all-state defensive lineman who had 5 sacks and a forced fumble in 22. So the Titans were a top offense in 3A and have some great talent returning defensively, and I think they can make it 2 titles in 3 seasons. So give me the Titans of Gibson Southern to win 3A.
So my dark horse, I've talked about this school already, but I'm going with Guerin Catholic. You have a strong senior quarterback leading the way for that team, a coach with a state championship pedigree. They are kind of set up right now to make that run. I feel like the only thing that really stands in their way is their sectional against Bishop Chatard. But like I said, I think whoever comes out of that sectional does have an inside track to get to Lucas Oil Stadium. So if Guerin is able to pull that upset of Bishop Chatard, don't be surprised to see them playing in Lucas Oil Stadium come Thanksgiving weekend, which then leads me into my 3A champion. I am going with Chatard. Look, this is a school that for the longest time, they know how to get. This program just knows how to get to the state championship. Whether they can win it or not is it up in the air always, usually every year. But this team is just solid. They return quite a bit. I mean, they're preseason number 1 for a reason. So honestly, this is their class again until proven otherwise. But they're very strong, but they're going to have a formidable challenge with Guerin Catholic this year.
Yeah, and then like you said, if Guerin Catholic can get past Chatard, I mean, they kind of assume that front runner position. So we'll see what happens there at Class 3A.